Hello, John Hampshire here from JH Coaching, and today I want to talk about why you should be doing interval sessions for your running or your cycling. So basically, most people when they start doing an endurance-based sport like running, cycling or even swimming, they go out and they do a steady paced effort. They might start off by doing 10 minutes. If you're running, you might walk and then jog, and then walk and jog until you can run for the whole of your 10 minutes. On the bike, you almost certainly be able to do a bit further, and you just keep an even pace and don't worry about how fast you're going. But then once you start thinking about how you can go faster if you want to take part in events, maybe races, then it's a case of working out how to build up your speed. So what you could do is have a circuit that you repeatedly ride round and keep trying to do it faster and faster. Well, that will work up to a point, but what you find is that at first you'll get much faster quite quickly. You get faster and faster each time you do it, and then sometimes you'll be a bit slower, and then sometimes you'll be a bit faster, and all this levels off. So I've drawn a little picture here, and what you'll find is, don't worry about all the different lines. The black line and the red line are just basically the same thing. So what you'll find is, if you look at, when you start off, you get faster and faster quite quickly, but then you reach a point where you don't really get any faster, and at that point you need to do something that stresses your system a bit more. What you're doing is you're reaching the limit of your aerobic capacity, which is limited by two things. One being your VO2 max, which is how much oxygen you can use basically, and the other is your what people nowadays quite commonly call the FTP, or your critical pace, or your critical power. FTP stands for functional threshold power, and that's basically the power or pace or speed that you can go for a fairly long time, usually between 35 and 70 minutes. The FTP is the critical thing, but how high you can get your FTP is dependent on your VO2 max. So there are three things here. I've got this a bit more paper. I've been doing a bit of preparation here. I suppose I could have used the computer. What we have here is what I was talking about, the FTP, critical power and pace. And then the other thing is anaerobic capacity, which is the amount of time you can spend above your FTP, roughly speaking. Or it's the amount of energy you can use. And then you've got stamina, which is basically a bit more vague, but how long you can do it for. And obviously that needs to be trained if you're doing long things like an ultra endurance event. Going back to our graph here, if you're doing an event of between 30 and 70 minutes, then your pace is going to be round about your FTP. But if you're doing a longer event, it's going to be slower, because you have to use the different energy systems, but we won't go into that. I mean, basically you're using a bit more fat than you're using carbohydrate. And if you're doing less than 30 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and maybe if you're doing 3 kilometers or 5 kilometers running, or a 10-mile time trial, then you're going to use some anaerobic energy, and you can go faster than your FTP. But the basic principle is the same. Is if you just keep doing the same thing, you'll reach a limit. So what you need to do is go a bit faster, and that's basically what interval training is all about. I've got some more sort of sophisticated charts here that I've been looking at, so if you want to look at these. So you can see here that the purple line is a representation of how much of your energy you're using, your anaerobic capacity you're using, which is above your threshold pace or power. And as you can see, that the purple line basically gives you an idea of how stressed your body is. So this is a representation of a 20-minute time trial over this period here, and what you can see is that the powers are around about the FTP power, which is about well, here it's 143 watts, and the average power for the 20-minute time trial was 144 watts. So pretty much there. She's a time trialist, so if she wants to train for a time trial, she wants to get faster over 20 or 30 minutes, or whatever the duration of the time trial is. Probably going to be about 35 minutes for a main event. So she's basically in this situation that if she keeps doing this, what will happen is that she'll just keep getting better and better for a bit, and then eventually she'll reach a plateau. So what she needs to do is start to be able to upset her body sufficiently to move the FTP. And the way that FTP moves is if you work anaerobically, you will upset your body sufficiently to make it want to move the FTP up, because it doesn't like not being able to work in a stable condition. So essentially your body wants to be it always wants to be able to sustain itself. It doesn't want to be debilitated in a situation where it might be in danger. If you think historically, if you ran away from something and then got totally exhausted, you and had to stop running away, you'd get caught and eaten. So and that situation can happen if we've got a picture of it here, where she was going to do 4 by 7 minute efforts. And I mean, the purple line's just an approximation, so don't worry too much about the actual numbers. You can see that in the first 7 minute effort, she used up all of her anaerobic capacity, and which meant that she was able to recover a bit in the 2 minutes recovery period, hit it again as hard as possible, and after that that was it. You know, so she didn't manage the 4 by 7 minutes. She gave herself some stimulus, but it would have been much better if she could have done 28 minutes of above threshold work rather than the 14 minutes that she actually managed. So I mean, these longer efforts are quite hard to pace, but you can get a good effect by doing very short efforts, and people term these as micro intervals sometimes, doing maybe 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, or 20 seconds on, 20 off, or mix it up a bit. You can see here that this is pretty good. She maybe could have gone a bit harder in the first set, but in the second and third, she's really sort of digging a bit deeper. And in the last one, she's basically a bit tired, I think, and struggling to maintain it. And we added this last effort in a bit longer, just to make sure everything was completely depleted, which I think that worked well. So this session worked really well. So basically, you're trying to do interval training to get your body to go a bit faster. If you work above that critical power or pace, then here once again you see, if you the more time you spend up here, the more your body wants to move that, so that you reach a sustainable situation where you can go for a reasonable period of time without incurring severe fatigue. And similarly, if you're going if you're in a longer event, if you can move this, your threshold power or pace, then this also becomes easier. So it's easier to sustain that pace, or what you want to happen is to be able to sustain a faster pace at the same level of effort, and in that way you'll be racing faster. I hope all that makes sense. I know it's a lot to get your head round, but essentially doing interval sessions will make a big difference to how fast you can take part in your events. And if you want to learn a bit more detail, then we've got a blog on endurancebikerun.com, our website, and there's loads of stuff on there about how to plan interval sessions with some sample training planned within the blogs. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and let us know what you think in the comments. And if I can help in any way, just sort of pop an email. You can get the contacts off the website, or make a comment below. Okay, bye, thanks.